It wasn't exactly the warmest of welcomes in Boston today for Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who was in town to speak at a Forbes magazine event.
Cava what? Cava. No. Cava. No. Cava. No.
But the man who pumped the brakes on Brett Kavanaugh's fast-track confirmation of the Supreme Court last week, he didn't shy away from the issue of the day.
We certainly want the FBI to do a real investigation, and we are working to make sure that that happens.
But there's been a lot of question about just how real and full that investigation will be, with reports that the White House is working hard throughout the weekend to try to limit just who the FBI can talk to and about what. But today, Donald Trump indicated he's open to a full look.
I want it to be comprehensive. I actually think it's a good thing for Judge Kavanaugh. I think it's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Now, with that being said, I'd like it to go quickly.
So what exactly does a quick, comprehensive investigation look like? And will the results get us any closer to the truth? I'm joined by Patrick Moore, former advisor for presidential personnel under Barack Obama, who helped vet Merrick Garland. He's now an attorney, not Merrick Garland, but Pat at Hemingway and Barnes. Good to see you. And George Price, a former federal law enforcement investigator, now an attorney with Kasner and Edwards. Good to see you too, George.
Good to see you.
You know, I've read everything I can about this FBI thing over the last couple of days. I have no idea what's going on. I believe the mandate, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is Mark Judge, the guy who was allegedly in the room, who wrote Wasted, Tales of a Gen X Drunk. Two other people who were allegedly at the party, and Deborah Ramirez, who was the Yale classmate who was leveled the second charge. Is that where you understand the breadth of this investigation?
Well, I saw the hearings like everybody else did, where they basically said you've got 7 days to do a background investigation and investigate the claims that are basically on the table at this point. So I think the FBI will take that wherever it takes them. This is a judge that has had 6 prior FBI background investigations. I've had one of those investigations done on me. These people go back, they talk to your grade school teachers, they talk to the people you went to school with, they talk to roommates.
Obviously didn't talk to his college roommate who said he was an incoherent drunk.
You'd be surprised what ends up in the reports. The question is, who didn't they talk to? And
So,
I think
do you
matters.
agree, Pat, that this, at least what they're doing in this 7-day time frame, is broad or is limited to 4 people? What's your understanding?
So I'm reading the same reports that they're planning to talk with 4 people. That, to my knowledge, has not been done before. The way this is typically done is you get a background investigation done. The report goes back to the White House or perhaps the Senate committee, and there might be an area for further investigation. Then you send the FBI back out to do that investigation, not limited by number of people, not limited by minutes or hours or days.
But this one is.
But this one appears to be.
Well, so answer something for me. Within this time frame, I know you say it's aberrational, it's not normal, but they talked to Deborah Ramirez, and Deborah Ramirez says John Doe and Jane Doe were 2 people who were in the room when he exposed himself to me. If their mandate is to only talk to 4 people, are they precluded from talking to the 2 people who she says would corroborate her story?
So they should not be. In the regular course, the FBI does in the regular course a criminal investigation, a civil investigation.
This is not a criminal investigation.
Right. In this case, the White House is the client. They follow what Don McGahn, the White House counsel, tells them to do.
But I guess my question is, if Don McGahn, you're shaking your head, Don McGahn says 4 people and 4 people only.
I don't believe it for a moment, because those
believe
FBI agents are going to investigate wherever the evidence takes them. If they've
no matter what the White House tells them?
If those witnesses are given statements that other people have information and they're not following up on that information, what's the point of the report?
Okay, here's a little bit from the president today. We gave you a little bit. Here's a little bit more. Donald Trump.
Should Brett Kavanaugh be interviewed by the FBI?
I think so. I think it's fine if they do. I don't know. That's up to them.
Should the FBI interview all 3 of Brett Kavanaugh's accusers?
It wouldn't bother me at all. Now, it depends. I don't know all 3 of the accusers.
All 3.
Certainly, I imagine they're going to interview 2. I've been heard that the 3rd one has, I have no idea if this is true, has very little credibility. If there is any credibility, interview the 3rd one.
Can I continue being a broken record,
Sure.
if I may? How do they decide without an investigation that Deborah Ramirez is credible, but Julie Swetnick, that's Michael Avenatti's client, maybe that's how they're deciding, is not credible? How do they do that?
The FBI has 35,000 agents or employees across the country. If they've been given a mandate to do this in a week, having done that job as a DE agent, you're given a task. The investigation is going to happen. They're going to and look at what ends up in their 302 at the end of the day.
That's the report they file.
The report they file might be very different than what they are mandated to do, but if they're agents and they're worth their salt, they're going to follow every lead where it takes them.
How about the Swetnick-Ramirez distinguishing a thing here? One yes, one no.
I don't know how that can be done, and I agree with George. The FBI agents who are doing this, they can do it quickly. They're going to want to talk to the relevant people. The White House has the ability to preclude them from doing it, and hopefully it doesn't exercise that
Here's
ability.
one thing, though. I think if they don't do those things, you're going to read it in the 302. We didn't talk to Ian Smith, or we didn't talk to John Doe because we didn't have time or because we weren't allowed to.
Is that 302 a confidential document? If it's given to all hundreds, well, you're nodding yes, you're saying no.
Well, they're saying that they're saying the 302 is going to go to the senators before they vote. And let's make an important point here. Other than maybe Joe Manchin, all the Democrats are going to vote no anyway. So this comes down to, does this report matter to three people? You know, Jeff Flake, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, it's the fate of the parties going forward. That's what's at stake.
Okay, can we go? I want to play a little bit from Jeff Flake and Chris Coons last night. Republican Jeff Flake and obviously his buddy, Democrat Chris Coons from the same committee. They were asked the question by Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes. Here it is.
If Judge Kavanaugh is shown to have lied to the committee, nomination's over?
Oh, yes. I would think so.
Well, there's partisan agreement there. So is that in the so-called 302? If they, for example, his roommate said he was aggressive and belligerent when drinking, incoherently drunk. Another college classmate said, it was in the Washington Post or New York Times today, staggering from alcohol consumption. If they include quotes like that, will they say Judge Kavanaugh lied, or do they not make any judgments?
No, they will not. I think there's serious concern about some of the statements and the accuracy of those statements that Kavanaugh made about his drinking in high school and college. In the typical course, the FBI would go and speak with people who were there, and then what you would get is a readout of the interview. What the Senate gets for judicial nominees is a background investigation of greater length than they get for anybody else, including the Secretary of Defense. So they will get every question asked, every answer given, not in transcript
by
form,
every
but very
FBI
close
agent,
to it.
they'll see that
That's
much?
Right.
You're nodding in agreement.
I agree.
There, too.
I think they'll get a summary of what the particular witnesses said on particular subjects.
Can I just go back to the initial thing? I'm sorry to beat this horse here. You both seem to be of the opinion, particularly you, George, that if it turns out the agents go out in the field, no matter what the White House and Don McGahn, the counsel, tells them, they're going to take this wherever they think it appropriately goes. Is that yes?
And I would say yes to that. And if they're not allowed to, you're going to read about it.
Are you worried about, I mean, as someone who used to do or receive these kinds of reports, and when you were working for Barack Obama, are you worried about the precedent this sets, this demented partisanship, this limitation on time and scope, even if it turns out George is right and they decide to do whatever they think is appropriate? The fact remains the White House, which is in charge of this, appears to have limited the scope despite Trump's comments. Does that worry you about the future?
Yeah, I'm worried about a lot of this. I'm worried about a number of things about this process. The fact that it came out at this stage, the fact that we're having an investigation that appears to be limited by the White House, the fact that this affects the credibility of somebody who's going to potentially sit on the highest court in the land. That's not something that should be the subject of procedural games that appears to be happening.
Yes.
But let's look at why.
Why what?
Why it's limited in scope. If this information had been given to the head of the committee 6 weeks ago when they first had it, you could have had a full FBI investigation done a long time ago. This whole situation, in my view, was weaponized.
By Dianne Feinstein.
By Dianne Feinstein.
She promised confidentiality.
As a political ploy.
She promised confidentiality
to stop the vote and to stop this man from getting on the Supreme Court.
Would you have, if you were that senator, you would have said, sorry, you told me it was confidential?
It is confidential, and they should have done the investigation and handled it that way.
Okay, let's go fast forward 10 days from now, and I have you back again, and I say, so did we arrive at the truth as a result of this FBI investigation? What will your answer be?
Oh, I doubt it. I'm not sure. I think that the FBI agents will be searching for the truth. What is done with the materials that they deliver to the Senate, what has happened thus far, does not inspire a lot of confidence.
What will you tell me in a
You
week?
will never know the truth from 40 years ago, period.
And you don't think it can be found?
No, I think
no matter how good the FBI agents are.
It'll be the best recollection of what people remember.
Which may be good enough. This is
maybe
not a
good-
criminal trial.
Exactly. Maybe good enough, but maybe way off base, too. There's
Pat,
just no way to know.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Good to
so
see
much
you,
for having
George.
me.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you both,
You too.
gentlemen.